What's going on, guys? It's Dealer here, back again with yet another video talking about PS5 spec leaks, some really big one if this insider, quote unquote, is to be believed. It's actually an insider with a track record, which makes this even more interesting. We've also got some speculation on a potential reveal date as well. I'll link that down below in the description. And if you're curious, this is Uncharted 4. Game is absolutely phenomenal, one of my favorite PlayStation games. Hey, I'm an Xbox guy, but I figured I'd make the gameplay match the topic. Today we happen to be talking about the PS5. I'll say it again, Xbox and PlayStation, same coin, opposite sides. And when one side is potentially revealing their specs, it gives us a really good idea of how that other side could be matching these specs. So it really gives us an overall idea of the capability. So when I recently covered Xbox Project Scarlett specs, you can really kind of connect these two videos and get a roundabout idea of what to expect from either console. Keep this in mind. This is why I do this. But hey guys, thanks for rocking out. When we hit that like button, maybe share this. We share things. Let's get into the topic. Alright, according to Insider Thewaway, some of you guys may have heard of this guy. He's got some W's in his corner. He's actually leaked some things before. Has come out and spoken on PlayStation 5. Also, he's actually updated this post here recently, and this was sent to me by my buddy Randall Thor. Thank you very much, sir. I can kind of give the full picture here. He says, another link has been discovered, adding to the credibility of the previous leak. For one, the code names match up for the GPU type. The GPU type is linked to the Gonzalo APU, which is believed to be the next generation console APU, and it even references these clock speeds for backwards compatibility: 800 MHz for the base PS4 and 911 MHz for the PS4 Pro, respectively. These frequencies are present in the newer APU to maintain that backwards compatibility that the PlayStation 5 will have. So consider that as we move forward into the rest of this leak. It says, breaking, this is PlayStation 5. According to this leak, the GPU is clocked at an insane 2 GHz, 2000 MHz for those counting at home. It says this equates to 9.2 teraflops on the RDNA architecture, but more importantly, or roughly 14 teraflops on the GCN architecture, aka over double the power of the Xbox One X, almost RTX 2080 power. Now I'm going to go through each part of this and kind of give my thoughts. Now the first thing that comes to mind, aside from the 2080 power reference, which we'll get to, is the clock speed of the actual chip. 2 GHz is absolutely insane, especially in a low power console that will be running on what is probably under 300 watts. So according to this 2000 MHz, that's pretty crazy. But what we do know is that these new AMD cards do run at substantially faster clocks than their predecessors. 1700 MHz is not uncommon, but keep in mind that these consoles will also be running on an APU, which is basically a combination of a GPU and CPU on one chip, on one die. Add to that the fact that they are doing custom things with both the next PlayStation and Xbox. But for this to hit 2 GHz, there would have to be something absolutely crazy in the next systems that isn't even currently really on PC. But again, these numbers could belong to a dev kit as well. Let me know what your thoughts are on that down below. Now here's something that I have actually touched on before and explained to people, that this new architecture of Navi is much more capable than that of Vega, that of Polaris. To put it in layman's terms, a 6 teraflop Navi would absolutely crush a 6 teraflop Polaris like in the Xbox One X. And this person's right, the new 9 teraflop Navi GPUs from AMD definitely compete with the 13, 14 teraflop Vega 64 from the Vega architecture. Navi is better at gaming in every single way over something like Vega and Polaris, and this is on what is largely unoptimized drivers. That's important to take note of. So just to reiterate here, he says this equates to 9.2 teraflops on the RDNA architecture, or roughly 14 teraflops on the GCN architecture. Again, GCN being something like a Vega part, Vega 64. Now what he's saying here makes a lot of sense, especially on the desktop side of things. True, depending on the game, this much power can compete with something like an RTX 2080, but the keywords are depending on the game. There are drastic differences on some of these titles with AMD GPUs and NVIDIA GPUs. It goes both ways. But I've said this before, I would not count on RTX 2080 power out of the PlayStation 5 or even the next Xbox. I would count on more like something like an RTX 2070, which is slightly faster than a GTX 1080. Do not make the mistake of thinking this means the console is not powerful. Nobody with a brain should expect these systems to be more powerful or as powerful as a $700 desktop class GPU. It's simply not the case. So if you hear people saying this thing's gonna have RTX 2080 performance, you may wanna, sprinkle some salt on that. And that's actually the problem with going from a sheer numbers perspective. That's the problem with math in some of this, is it'll tell you things like RTX 2080, whereas somebody with the actual knowledge and experience with these cards would tell you otherwise. There is going to be a little bit of a difference here. Again, more indicative of GTX 1080/RTX 2070 performance. And we are not talking about the super variants of those cards. This is a low power box designed to be cost effective. Again, this is exactly what happened when something like the Xbox One X was rumored, was coming out, all these leaks were happening. I told you guys to expect RX 580 performance somewhere around there, and that can be debated as slightly higher, but overall I would say it's around that performance. It's very, very accurate, and it's phenomenal value for the money with that console. Keep in mind, they need to replicate that phenomenal value for the money aspect again with the next Xbox and the next PlayStation. The real story of these new systems is the CPU and the memory, the RAM, the SSD, all of this stuff. GPU power will be there, you'll have more than you've ever had on a console by far, but system balance will be the main thing with these systems, 60 FPS, stuff like that. Question is, and I've said this a million times, who will customize these platforms? Who will have the best, most efficient, most effective ray tracing? Who will have the best physics? Who will have the best memory setup, the load times, etc.? But no matter what happens, just know that it will be the most balanced set of systems of all time. You're looking at a truly PC-like experience here. Very, very exciting. Now, for those of you that are wondering when you can expect to actually see or hear about the PlayStation 5 from Sony themselves, aside from maybe an interview or two, you may see more of it at 2020's PlayStation meeting. That is in February 2020. Rumors point to the PS5 being officially unveiled at this meeting. And if you do recall, February of 2013, Sony did come out and debut the specs. They actually talked about the system architecture. They broke the news on the 8 GB of GDDR5, and that was actually really big news back then because graphics cards had about 1.5 GB, 2 gigs of the stuff, at least in the mid-range. But yeah, they debuted a lot of these specs, a lot of this information in February of 2013. Then they unveiled what the system looked like at E3 2013. It launched that fall. The rest is history. But hey, let me know what you think down below. What do you think about all the specs, the clock speeds, and more? And how do you think it will compare to Microsoft's Project Scarlett Xbox, which has confirmed hardware accelerated ray tracing and more? Personally, I'm thinking the Xbox could be more powerful, but hey, we could be wrong. It happens. Again, hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, maybe learned something today. Thanks to all the Xbox dudes on this channel that still checked out this video despite it being about a PlayStation. You guys rock. You literally powered the channel. Share this video with a buddy or two if you get a second, and of course subscribe if you are new. Check out the links down below for the source and more. I'm Dealer. I'm out.